My News founder Anushka Gupta posted. She said, I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. Yeah.
There is a lot of friction there.
What's ROI for you in personal branding?
I always give this example of Vinita saying, you should see the sales of sugar before and after Shark Tank. I think it takes guts to do that.
As women, of course, when I come face front, I am going to get the clicks. How can we bring in the brand voice, the brand chronology, etc. to your networking?
Your network is your net worth.
Say Faye Beauty's founder, right? Karishma, she's probably competing with Deepika's brand image.
You know, your audience will catch you like this and they will cancel you.
Do I really need to be face front, or can I still run a business without that? Hi everyone, I'm Heenal and welcome to the Found Hers podcast season 2. Today is our first episode and I'm so excited to speak about a topic that's very close to my heart, which is branding and of course personal branding. And for that, I have Komal Ramani Makhija, the founder of Project, with us here today. Hi Komal, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Great, I'm so excited because I think when I first met you, the first thing that clicked was our love for branding. More than branding, I think just setting the narrative right as to what is branding all about after the hyper-digitalization changed the meaning of it. And of course, I think the most important thing, which is entirely what this podcast is hinged on, is founders. I think we both are here looking to help early stage founders, and that's what this episode is going to be all about. Can you tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and what is it that you're excited about in branding?
So I help founders craft their dream legacy brand, as simply as I can put it. If you want the longer narrative, when you're trying to launch a business, there are several things that you need to take care of. In terms of branding, we help you find the correct product market fit, be it via a group of surveys or one-on-one consultation with prospective clients, any sort of brand strategy that you may require in terms of positioning your brand, making sure your value proposition, your pillars of branding, right, mission, vision, the fancier words, you get that right. And then moving on to visuals, wherein we take care of everything from your logo to your brand assets, be it smaller or bigger, eventually leading to saying, hey, I'm ready to launch myself in the market. So we are there to handhold you throughout the entire journey.
That's very interesting because you speak about like the key pillars of branding, which is brand values, etc. To be honest, what I have heard is this is just textbook knowledge. I don't think I need that. If I have a product that's good enough, I can sell it. Why is that really important for today's founders?
So you need to understand there are several parties involved in making a brand.
Okay.
One party is the founder themselves. The second is the team behind it. And the third is the audience or your consumer, correct? Now, if we look at three people individually, only the founder is clear of their vision of their specific product or the brand that they want to have. Now, none of us have telepathy powers, right? So we can't get inside the founder's head and understand ki uske dimag mein kya hai and what does he or she want to project out in the world, which is where branding comes into the picture. So the role of branding is to make sure whatever the founder is thinking in terms of the product, how it's supposed to be portrayed, how it's supposed to help the consumer is conveyed to all the other parties, correct? This is where the brand strategy and branding comes into place. So taking back to your team and your employees, if you hire a new person, you cannot expect the person to know everything that's going on in your head, to know every value that you have brought into the company or the product, to have every single exposure level that you have had as a founder, correct? But you have to kind of communicate it to that other person and make sure the other person is on the same line as you, right, so that everything comes together and you serve the right product to the audience. That's one part of branding. The other part is when the audience comes into the picture. Again, the audience does not know what to expect out of you. You have to set that expectation in front of the audience. Right. That is where that part of branding comes into the picture. So the idea is not that you need to learn the values, the DNA, the archetype. The idea is whatever is going on in your head needs to be communicated simultaneously to all parties in one single language. Right. So that everyone is on the same page as you.
That's very, very well put, because I think you clearly defined like the founder, the audience and the product. So I think what you mentioned very well was how these brand values can be adapted into different aspects, and how can a founder who's building a brand in 2025 actually create this entire brand archetype and execute it. Like, what's the actionable aspect of it?
So we call these as brand touch points in our branding language.
Right.
What this means is every single time your audience is trying to interact with you as a brand, you need to give them the same values. Now, the interaction can happen offline, the interaction can happen online, the interaction can happen via a third party, which is not even controlled by you. Right?
Okay,
Because
fair.
you are not in control where your audience is coming to know about your brand. If I have a example, I have a product, right? I have a beauty brand. So one part is my social media. There's several social media channels. The other part is several third-party platforms. I may onboard myself to Nykaa. I may onboard myself to Amazon. I may onboard myself to whatever. I may also have pop-ups, yeah, which I can put into exhibitions. I may have pop-ups in malls. Now, these are different touch points.
Got it.
How you have to think as a founder, when is the first time my audience is going to come to know of me as a brand? Is it via digital ad? Is it via word of mouth? Is it via a sample you are actually putting into somebody else's order and sending it across? Is it via newspaper advertisement? Now that becomes your brand touch point. Okay. So your value is not an artificial post bucket that you just need to present it in a social media post. Your values now get converted into different creative forms, right? And then they're put into these touch points in several different ways. So the language that you're using on this touch point, the visual that you're using on this touch point, the idea itself, what is the consumer experiencing? Because immersive branding is the future, right? Okay. So if the consumer does not experience anything out of that touch point, there is a big chance the consumer will not return to you, because the market is cluttered with brands these days, right?
Agreed.
So you have to communicate with your customer that, hey, this is what I stand for, in 5 different ways. You cannot use the same sentence everywhere. You cannot use the same visual everywhere, because the customer is going to get bored. They'll be like, "Ye maine dekha hua hai, move on, scroll past it."
Fair,
right?
Fair.
So there has to be a newness in communicating, but the value that you're communicating needs to be the same. So it's much, much larger than a social media post that founders usually think it is.
I think what you said is very interesting. I just got this random thought while you were telling me, was like, if you realize everything is all about communication, that's the most basic life skill that we are taught when we are kids. But just see how much we all struggle with it, right? Like, how do I communicate myself, or how do I communicate this to another person? You also mentioned something about immersive branding. I'm quite excited to know what you mean about that, in terms of that's where we're kind of headed.
Yeah, immersive means a mix of online and offline.
Okay.
That is what it literally means. See, what happens is, again, going back to the same example, I bought a product out of Nykaa or Amazon or whichever platform I purchased it from. I receive a parcel to my home.
Right.
Now, when it opens, right, that's an experience for me, because I've not actually gone to the store to purchase it. Right? So when I open, what is the feeling I'm getting? Is there a scent that I'm getting? So if, for example, the flavor of shampoo that I've ordered has rose in it or shea butter in it, can you infuse that smell somehow in the packaging? So because when I open it, it automatically smells of it. The experience that the consumer can get out of that unpacking has won the game for you.
Yeah, that is very true. I think that's a very growing trend, because I think I've noticed it with so many brands coming in. And secondly, a very big aspect of personalization. Like, that's also a theme of this year, and that's the theme. I remember I used to work with Odd Giraffe, actually. They were listed on Amazon. And then I remember this, after one season was done, the founder called me and said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm making a personalized business. And this was before personalization became a trend. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah, like, I want to give everyone a diary with their name on it. And that took off. And how? The same way with Zepto and their bags, right? There was this one LinkedIn post that I read, which the My Muse founder, Masaba Gupta, posted. She said, I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. And it was a very, very interesting post, because she went ahead and she spoke about how she's a private person. She's introverted. She's not extroverted. She didn't want to share her personal life out there. And like you said, right, I have noticed this. I actually did a little bit of a study. And I remember we sat on that session with Arjun Vaidya, and he also said the same thing. He's like, the first post that took off was when I spoke about, something personal to me. So I want to ask you that, do I really have to talk about something personal all the time?
See, it's very important to show your personal side to your audience, because at the end of the day, you're a human. You're not a physical asset brand, correct?
Fair.
So if your human side does not come in, the audience will not relate to you. So what you need to look at it is, you're not writing that post for the clicks or the virality. You're writing that post to make sure that the audience has a foot in your door.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing primarily is that when you're doing your personal branding, I think you can be a very private person, but you can just share a little about what makes you a human. Any such women personal brands that you really look up to or find inspiration from?
I love Ragini Das content.
Yeah.
I think she's amazing. I don't think she's an introvert though,
Yeah.
but I think she's just so honest. The way she puts her whole heart out there on social media, be it a failure, be it a win, be it struggling with something, be it openly announcing that, they tried something and it didn't work,
Yeah.
or they are now trying something more. I think it takes guts to do that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, like, even me, if I'm doing something, I always try it and test it internally. It's not like, you announce it to the world. It's very difficult building in public. So yeah, that's one women personal brand that I would say has done amazingly well. I also like Masaba Gupta. I love Pooja Dhingra. Great inspiration.
Yeah.
Again, they put a lot out there. A lot of personal stuff, a lot of work stuff. I love Pooja Dhingra's brand because she's very fun. If you look at her Instagram, I mean, she's achieved amazingly well. But if you look at her page, it's very, very fun.
Yeah.
So, it really depends on who your personality is, like what your personality is, and you go from there.
Yeah. I think Pooja Dhingra for me too, because she started Love 15 and she got macaroons when India was not too open to macaroons or didn't have that in the market. But the way she took food and her love for food out there, I think it was brilliant. I think she was one of those traditional personal brands that were built before LinkedIn became a big thing.
A big thing.
There is one stat that says that about 70% of the consumers prefer brands where the founder is face front, but at the same time, few people feel like founder focused stories and communications is creating like a personal branding fatigue. So what's your take on this? When I saw Anshita from Fix My Curls, Karishma from Faye Beauty, these two people really went on the internet in the last 2 months, and then you saw a range of founders in the skincare and beauty care industry come and speak about their journey. So wouldn't this create some sort of exhaustion of content?
I feel founders are too fixated on what has worked for the other founder.
Yeah.
So let's just try and do the same thing, because if their journey is working, my journey will also work.
Agreed.
So the biggest problem is, like, you cannot copy the other person's brand, you cannot copy the other person's personal brand, right?
Sure.
There has to be a distinction. Everybody is not sharing their own journey. Everybody is seeing, hey, that's working for that person's journey. Let me just see where my journey was in that specific segment, and let me just share that. That does not work.
Yeah.
Your audience will catch you like this and they will cancel you.
Yeah, that canceling is huge. Of course, I think what I fear in personal branding, especially even for me, right? Like, because I do talk about topics like branding, marketing, customer relations, etc. And then I wonder that, okay, cool, there are like 10 other people already speaking about this topic, and I'm going to give them more 3 trips into this space. So isn't that going to create some sort of fatigue in the minds of consumers? As women, of course, when I come face front, I am going to get the clicks. Okay, let's accept that.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay to accept that. But I know so many women founders who are just like, no, the crowd is so bad. What if there are like so many men and they just start following my page and that's not my audience, etc. While that happens, I see so many influencers who've made it big, and you have all these harsh comments put in by the other gender because of whatever reasons. And that brings a little fear in the girl or the woman, saying that, I don't really want to come face front. Like, it's fine. Sales ho raha hai, I'm okay. So what advice would you give a founder like this? And do I really need to be face front, or can I still run a business without that?
You can run a business without being face front. I don't think that it's 100% compulsion for anybody. It's an added advantage, 100%. But I don't recommend founders doing anything they're not comfortable with. Not in
Yeah.
their business, not in their business branding, not in their personal branding. Because see, when you become a founder, you create a space for yourself. You want to create a space for yourself.
Yeah.
That is the reason you probably even start this journey. You don't want to follow what the other person's doing. Correct? So when you've started with that intent, if I come and tell you that, hey, this is compulsory,
Yeah.
there is a lot of friction there, right?
Yeah.
And it does not work. Most founders are headstrong. So if you come across with a headstrong founder and they have this built into their heads that, hey, I don't want to do personal branding, there is no way in hell I can convince them.
Right.
So at that stage, I would tell them, don't do it, right?
I get a good different question actually. People are just like, okay, you want me to invest in my personal brand? What's the return that I'm going to get? And I find it very difficult to quantify it because it's not that
Oh no, you
I
should.
will run an ad for you and get you like sales. So, what's ROI for you in personal branding?
Oh, you should. I always give this example of Vinita saying, you should see the sales of sugar before and after Shark Tank. So when you talk about ROI,
Agreed.
just bring that numbers up, and that's about it.
Right.
You know, there is an ROI. But if you say, see, it's not an ad, like you correctly said, it's not an ad that I'm running. So I can't tell you that this is my spend, this is my target audience, and this is the sale you got from it.
Yeah.
It's not, and even branding is not the same, right?
These are all like intangible things I can't really put a value or a number to.
Right. And this builds on over time.
Yeah.
What I was, say, 2.5 years back, and what I'm today in my personal branding journey is very different. Right? So, as a founder, if I myself have taken so much time, in spite of knowing all the branding basics, in spite of doing it for other people, if I have taken my own sweet time to come up to a level where I'm at, I still feel I'm very, very at a very basic level. There is still a long journey for me to go. Right? So if I can accept it, and if I am ready to put in the hard work myself to do it day after day, you can, it's not like I'm trying to tell you a service and I'm not doing it. You can see it on my page, I'm doing it. And I'm telling you I'm doing it. I don't even have a person who does it for me. So after running a business, after making sure I'm a homemaker, everything is being done, still I put in that 1 hour of LinkedIn each day. There definitely is a return.
Right.
But the thing is, the return starts coming after a while. Branding is a thing for which you take a couple of months, a couple of years for it to materialize. It's not an ad. So
you need to be patient.
Yeah, you
it's
need
a
to
long-term return.
Absolutely. It's a long-term game. You need to treat it that way. But if you start with the thought that, hey, I'm uncomfortable, so I would not do it, you will never be able to, sustain yourself in the long-term game.
Personal branding requires a lot of investment. Time is one part of it. What are the other aspects of the investment that a founder needs to really make when it comes to building a personal brand?
Zero.
It's that easy.
Yeah. You can, like you've seen my content.
Yes.
I don't use a mic. I use a very simple clip-on light, no professional lights, no editing softwares. I edit most of my stuff on iPhone. No fancy softwares to write anything, and I'm the only person who's doing all of it. So it's very easy.
Just tell us how ahead have you grown, because that would be an inspiration as well to founders.
So basically, when I started, I used to bulk create posts because obviously ideas don't just flow.
Yeah.
And initially you're very hesitant, like you want to be a perfectionist, you want the hook to be right, you want the body to be right, you want the CTA to be right. So I would just sit down on one Saturday, I would write 4 or 5 posts for the week on that Saturday. And make sure that while posting, I used to be present because you have to be active on the platform, for the post to pick up. So I would do that. And now I've gotten to a stage where I can be having my morning coffee and I have a thought in my mind, I'll quickly type it out and post it. So that's the journey in 2.5 years. And when I started, actually, I'd heard, I don't remember who that person is, but I'd heard somebody talking about this in a panel that, I write my posts with my morning chai. And I'm like, wow, I wish I achieved that someday. Yeah. And, it just comes with practice.
Yeah, I think I love how natural it is that, okay, I felt something, I wrote it. I did that once, it was monsoons, and I was like done in Bombay. I was like, I cannot go to office. I hate it. It's just so icky. But you had to show up because your team was showing up from all parts of Bombay. And I was just so frustrated, and I just typed it on LinkedIn. That post did so well. I was getting like 2-3 likes, and I've got like some 50 likes on it, and people are like, yes, support. And I was just like, okay, you support on this, but not on the thoughtful information that I give you. So that brings me to one other myth that people say is that personal branding is all about self-promotion. And, before personal branding for founders became big, personal branding existed. I mean, look at all the Bollywood stars, the cricketers, right? Virat Kohli is known to have the largest brand in our country. So it was always existing. And nowadays I feel like sometimes I see founders just take personal branding genuinely as self-promotion because they think that, acha, okay, I'm going to be like walking the red carpet or whatever it is, I'm going to have
Right.
paps around me, etc. So is personal branding really self-promotion?
It cannot be. You have to give the audience. It's always give more, take less. It's always been like this. So you start out thinking it's self-promotion. You love to do it, and everybody wants to do it. But you cannot catch it so easily.
You mentioned about Vinita Singh on Shark Tank. She had to do paid marketing as such. And now people view that also as a different channel to enter into the market. What's your take on that for a founder building a brand in India?
I think that's amazing if you have the knowledge for it. Like you mentioned, I also follow Deepa Khosla.
Yeah.
She was a big influencer, and then she launched Indivild.
Indivild, yeah.
I consume Indivild a lot, and I'm a fan of the product, right? So you have to understand the first time sale will come because you already have a platform and then you're launching on it, right? The repeat sale, however, will come only if your product is good, or only if you solve a specific problem. Otherwise, the repeat purchase will not come. If the repeat purchase does not come, you don't have a business.
I love how you answer this. I'm going to keep this in my pitch meetings.
Right. So it's a good way. Like, it's great that you have a platform. In fact, I think it was Do You Founders, if I'm not mistaken. She had first created
Samantha,
in
the founder. Yes,
so she had first created a Instagram community before she launched. She's not an influencer, she was not trying to do that, but she started building content around it, and then she launched. And her idea was that hey, at least I'm not launching to an empty room. I have somebody in the room that I can launch to. So it's a great strategy, but at the end of the day, your product is something that needs to win. The first purchase लेकर आना paid marketing से कर सकते हो, खुद influencer बन सकते हो, you can hire somebody. First sale is difficult to crack. That can be cracked via you being an influencer or you having an audience. But later on, the business struggle still remains. Your product needs to be good.
Yeah, I think customer retention, right? It's not the initial push that you get. But like her, I think Parul Gulati did a brilliant thing when launching Nishair. I think the product was something the market needed. But at the same time, you have Kriti Sanon, who's launched another brand in the beauty and personal care industry. And then you're competing with an 82E, which is owned by Deepika Padukone. So when I'm a founder, say Faye Beauty's founder, right, Karishma, she's probably competing with Deepika's brand image. And at that time, what is the value of your personal brand? Because then I'm targeting just a small segment of people. People who love Deepika, fans are going to buy that product, same for Hyphen, and that will stay. As a women founder, I'm already feeling a little bit of the imposter syndrome, as we like to call it, and now I've felt it a little bit more. So what would be your advice to women like this?
1 is better than 0, 2 is better than 1.
Okay.
So, yeah, Deepika Padukone may be a 10, but instead of being a 0, please be a 1.
Yeah, at least start.
Yes, she has a platform, but she has a platform because she's been through that journey.
Yeah.
She's already established herself. If you don't start, you will never establish yourself.
Right.
Right? So what is stopping you?
Yeah.
Like, please, you really need to stop comparing yourself with everyone around you. You need to look inwards and go from there. That is the advice I give to all founders, irrespective of what stage they're coming from.
I have a very interesting question. I think you and I met at a networking event, and I think that's also a very big space where you as a founder can communicate what you are doing, who you are. So can you tell me a little bit more about like networking for a founder, for an early stage founder, and how can we bring in the brand voice, the brand tonology, etc. to your networking?
So, I always say I started networking very late. I wish I had started it earlier. And this is the advice I would give to every founder. We have heard this in several podcasts, books, quotes. Your network is your net worth. And there's nothing that's truer than this. Why network? Because it can open so many opportunities and so many doors for you that you cannot even think about. how to network and how to bring your brand alive in a networking event is an art. And that needs to be thought very well through from the founder's end, because you have to understand you are kind of becoming the face of your brand, right?
Correct.
So when you're actually going to a networking event, apart from your basics, like you have to have an elevator pitch ready, or you have to have your business cards ready, all this is very handy and the information is available. But what I would say is you already have your own brand's voice, tone, personality defined.
Yeah.
It will be good if you take some time out and define a personality for yourself. Who are you as a founder? What do you want to depict out there in the world as the founder of a specific brand?
Right.
Work on that, work on your own personality. Now, when you talk about personality and when you talk about showing up, everything matters. How you appear, how you dress up, how confidently you speak, what you're wearing, how you're talking, right? So you need to make sure that is some part of your personality is in alignment to your brand. Because understand, in a networking event, everyone who's interacting with you is kind of making a connection between the two, right? And if the connection is off, neither will you take off, neither will your brand take off.
Sure.
So your personality needs to be authentic you, but when you go out on a date, how you dress up, how you're excited, how you plan that, hey, this is what I'm going to wear because I want to appear in a certain manner. Put that thought behind when you're going to a networking event. If you want to appear authoritative, make sure your dressing is that way. Make sure, your accessories are that way. Make sure you're walking like that in a confident room. But if you feel that you are somebody who is more calm and friendly and playful, then make sure you're dressing that way, right?
Yeah.
Be your authentic self, but make sure it connects with your brand. And talk like that when you're talking to other people. Make sure you bring that energy into the room, because that energy, how you're making the other person feel, is what will get remembered. And that eventually is a brand, right?
Yeah. I think you very well explained brand building and also personal branding, because that is so important as a founder. And you build your own personal brand exceptionally well on LinkedIn. So moving into personal branding, and because we've seen you grow your beautiful brand on LinkedIn, let's just start off with why LinkedIn? Why did you choose LinkedIn?
So for me, personal branding and branding are not two different, roads like a lot of people put it. Because personal branding actually came in much later and now it's become the buzzword. But for me, it was just an extension of who I am and what my brand is, right? So even if you look at my own brand name, it's called Project with a K. The idea behind the K is me, which is Komal, right?
Okay,
so for me and my brand were always, together, which is why I got into personal branding without knowing I'm getting into personal branding. So
I think that's how every entrepreneur's story is.
Yeah. And as a founder, you do whatever it takes to kind of make sure that your brand is out there, it survives, everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
And see, that was the intention behind starting what is now called as personal branding, right? Why LinkedIn? Because I did try on Instagram a little bit before I went on to LinkedIn, and I tried doing several stuff on Instagram from my brand page. It did take off a little bit, but the more I was on Instagram, I realized the platform was being consumed unintentionally, which means whenever you're bored, whenever you don't have much to do, whenever you are taking a break from office, whenever you have too many tasks to do, and when you want a distraction, you open Instagram. Correct?
Okay.
Now you have to understand, if you're trying to sell something, the first key point is you understand your audience. So that is what I was trying to do unintentionally, right? So I realized that if somebody is trying to consume that content unintentionally, and if they're trying to take a break, they would not want to listen to my story and the branding gyan that I'm trying to give them, because it requires intentional listening to that particular piece of content, right? And after that, I realized I can keep doing this forever, and I don't think that people will really listen to it. Now, that is my perception. Not sure how much right, how much wrong. That is what I was thinking. And I was trying to look at what else can I do to make sure my brand is out there, people know about it. And that is when I came to know of LinkedIn. Till then, I would again use LinkedIn as a CV, as a hiring platform, like most of us, do. But I saw that there was a growing trend of founders sharing their story on LinkedIn.
Right.
And it caught my eye. And I thought, why not? When you try so much on Instagram and you put so much effort, it's another platform. There's no harm trying it for a few days.
Right.
that is how the whole journey started. And it started with a very selfish motive that I wanted to put my brand out there. Now, what happened after that was I'm a part of a lot of networking communities. And once I would go to these networking communities, there's a stark difference, okay? What would go viral on LinkedIn would be my personal story, my personal career graph,
Right.
or something that has my personal something into it. But when I would go to a networking event, people would remember that one piece of content in which I would have given one tip that they would have implemented, and they would have actually got some benefit in their business out of
Wow.
implementing that tip.
Nice.
And that is why they remembered me, and that is why they approached me and they wanted to speak to me. Right?
Fair.
They might have heard my Rona Dhona that I would have put on LinkedIn that, hey, this happened and that happened and this is my journey. That's
Yeah.
amazing. You need that to connect with the audience.
Right.
And probably after listening to all of that, they connected with me. But eventually, why they remembered me was for that tip that I gave them. Because the tip was actually coming out of my personal experience.
Right.
It was not coming out of a book that I had read and I was not just reading a page
Yeah.
out of it and saying that, okay, you do this.
Right.
So because of that, people started remembering me. And it gave me so much happiness, that branding is something that you can take up. It requires a little bit of an investment. So everybody who's starting out cannot afford it, right? So you try to do a lot of things on your own. But if there is something that, somebody can pick up just out of one piece of content, and if it helps them in their business, I mean, I was over the moon when somebody said this. And so I decided to continue it. That is how LinkedIn happened. I kept doing it, yes. And, once you're on a platform, you start following major people who have grown on those platforms. And they kept saying consistency is everything. So I was like, okay, let's be consistent and let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm still doing. I am still consistent. I still post just in the hope that somebody can actually benefit out of the content I'm posting.
So here's a question for you. If I'm a founder building something, let's take the Zepto founders for example. They have not built a personal brand. They built a business first.
Right.
You can be a founder like that as well.
Yeah.
And then they come on podcasts where people are like, oh wow, like they're so young, I relate to their thoughts, etc. So is there a specific type of business or industry? Because I see what I notice is a lot of the B2C founders, especially in FMCG, go like headstrong on these platforms, speaking about their brand. B2B founders are just like, do I really need to? Like, is this where I need to be? Is this going to really help my business? So what industries, is there an industry specification when it comes to founders putting themselves out there as a personal brand, be it on any of the platforms?
So you rightly, saw that D2C or B2C works well because your consumers are your customers, right? So it's good to show your face on platforms that they are consuming. For B2B, it does not matter as much because the business is, kind of going to purchase your product. But I don't see a huge distinction. I only feel it's how open you are to that idea at this stage. See, every founder has their priorities set. For now, like you mentioned the example of Zepto, for them, establishing the business was key, right? They were head on into that, right? They didn't find the time to, build a personal brand, or they probably didn't think it was necessary at that point in time. But see, coming on a podcast is also a personal branding activity, right? You may not be actively doing it, but it is still passive personal branding and they're indulging in it, correct? So by this way or that way, you will have to show your face. Right? Figure out what's comfortable for you.
You can't hide behind.
No, you can't. You can't hide
Not
behind.
in today's day, I don't think so at all. With the new generation coming in, they don't want you to be hidden behind. They really want you to want to know who's there. Bringing that to, because we're speaking about 2025 and because you love branding so much, can you tell us what are the key trends that you notice to pick up in 2025, at least when it comes to branding?
So I don't believe branding is dependent on trends because, like I always say, branding is a long-term game and you really need to see where you're coming from, what your roots are to kind of build a brand. But what we usually see is what are the different trends in a specific industry. So what we would see is what's going on in the packaging industry, for
Right.
example. What is the consumer needing at this point in time? What is going on in the restaurant industry? So those are the different industries we focus on. And then probably once we give a solution to a client, we make them aware that say, this is what the consumer is expecting today. And because you're in that specific category or because you're in that specific industry, you might want to consider it. But all this is only done on aspects that can be changed.
Right.
So, for example, today, transparent open packaging is really working, right? People want to see under product dikhta kaise hai.
Yeah.
Anything, be it food
Brown
products.
boxes are gone.
it's completely gone. But see, it's a trend.
Yeah.
And packaging can be changed because once you order whatever your minimum MOQ is, we can change it later again if the trend changes. So when we are designing a packaging box, we will consider that trend, correct? We'll consider that today a lot of brands do greenwashing. They're not really as sustainable as they are, but they're trying to be. So today, since that's the trend and if they want to go in it, we would suggest them something. But the core branding that we talk about, it's never on trends. Like a logo cannot be defined on a trend. Your brand values cannot be defined on a trend.
Yeah, I think what you said very well was branding is long term and it's timeless.
Yeah.
And I think it stuck with me was the fact that you can't make a logo on a trend. I'm not going to make a loud logo because the Gen Zs like it, because 5 years later they're not going to like it, and then
Absolutely.
what? I think that's very interesting. Many key points that we highlighted through this conversation, but now we're going to do a quick truth segment because I think with a little bit of everything we need to be honest with our audience.
Right.
And I want you to really give me these insights for women founders, because those are the people who are listening to this podcast.
Right.
So let's go quickly.
Okay.
Tell me 3 myths about personal branding that you really want to bust.
It takes a lot of time. You need to invest a lot of money into it. And you need to have like a full-fledged team working behind the scenes to make sure that you're successful.
Good. I think you are the testament of these myths. So that's great. Next one, 3 things about personal branding that no one tells you about.
Consistency is game changer. It's underrated. You really need to look into your own self first before putting yourself out there. You need to be true to yourself. And you cannot master all platforms at one go. Please pick one first, otherwise you'll burn out.
Interesting. And lastly, 3 hard truths that you want women founders to know from you and learn from your journey.
The obstacles that you see in the outside world are not from the outside. They are your insecurities. Most things that we are combating today, we try and put it on probably the other gender, probably some situation, probably some circumstance. What I have seen in so many years is it's basically stemming from either your own insecurities or something that has happened to you in the past.
Yeah.
So get over it. Stop blaming the other person, basically. Second thing, don't think, I think women are overthinkers.
Yeah.
We need to stop that. We need to be more practical and we need to act fast on what we think.
I have learned in my short duration of a founder has been the women's gut. It speaks, and
True.
it speaks, so you should listen to it.
Very interesting ad.
Yeah, that is definitely something that I have learned. So thank you so much, I think, for being here. It was a very interesting conversation. I think a lot of learnings for me. I was like literally just taking notes. But I just wanted to conclude this for all our viewers as well. Few things that you said which really stuck with me is A, your network is your net worth. I think that was a very powerful statement to make. Second was give more, take less. Not many people know how to action it. And if you're really here in the long run, this is what's going to help you. And lastly, branding is timeless. Don't stick to trends. So thank you so much. I hope you had a great conversation. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. I had a lovely time. And I hope your listeners do get some, actionable steps that they can take when they're building their brand.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you so much for listening in today on this episode about the business of being seen. Please like, share and subscribe if you like this episode.